It's quite possible that my tire could have exploded. I could have exploded. Hi, my name is ThePeachyKat and welcome to the ThePeachyKat channel. I am a small content creator on Twitch and TikTok, so I figured I would give YouTube a try and see how you guys like it. I have been inspired lately with channels and YouTubers that do their makeup while they talk about random topics. So I figured I would start talking about random things that come into my brain. Today's topic is cheap, frugal, cheapskate. If you have any questions about the makeup products that I use, I will be posting them down in the description, so check that out. Without further ado, let's start the makeup and let's start talking. Let's talk the tea, sis. So, I have a lot of experience with this topic. I have been raised to be a frugal queen. Very frugal. I'm always looking for a bargain. I'm the type of person that buys all their shoes at Walmart, and every time I get a compliment on one, I'm like, I got that for 12 bucks at Walmart. And they're like, I'm like, So there are pros and cons to being cheap. There are good times to be cheap and there are bad times to be cheap. An example is what actually inspired this story. Every time somebody donates or cheers or anything over on my Twitch, I always use a little bubble gun and I shoot a bunch of bubbles into the air and it's a lot of fun. I just ran out of bubble juice. Like I had no more bubble juice left. I thought, oh, what a great opportunity to save money. So I take off to the bathroom. I fill the empty bottle up with hot water and just like bubble bath, peach scented bubble bath. It wasn't working. I couldn't get the bubble, the bubbles they just didn't look good. They just didn't look right. They just kept clumping. It just wasn't cute. It wasn't a fun, magical time. So I'm over here trying to figure out how to make bubbles because when I was a kid, I used to do that too. All of a sudden, my boyfriend comes in and he's like, oh, well, did you look up how to make bubble juice? And I was like, oh, well, no. He's like, oh, well, actually, this is how you do it. And he Googled it and he was like, you're doing it wrong. And for like an hour straight, we were trying to make bubble juice. Like we were just trying to make bubble juice. Each time that either the bubbles would be too thin or too like gloppy, they just wouldn't work. So we're just like over the kitchen sink. We have all these vases full of random bubble solutions. This one has 1 cup of sugar with 2-3 squirts of bubble juice. Oh, this one only has half a cup of sugar with more soap than water. And we were just trying to figure out like all these solutions. We literally had like 3-4 different bubble juices that we were trying to make. One of our roommates came down and was like, oh, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're making bubbles. Just like making bubbles as though we're like 7-year-old kids during summer vacation or something. And so we both were like, okay, we have one more shot. We're each gonna do 2 more versions with the bubbles. And if that doesn't work, we're gonna give up because it was already getting like, I didn't know how much time we were spending on this. We each tried 2 more solutions and they again didn't work. I looked at the clock. I realized we had spent an hour trying to make bubble solution when we could have just taken 15 minutes to drive down to the Dollar General that's down the street and bought like 5 gallons worth of bubble juice for 10 bucks. It was a lot of fun to just like make bubbles. It was just depressing in the end when no matter what recipe we tried, the bubbles just wouldn't work with the bubble gun. And it was just so depressing to like realize we had spent so much time, like an hour of time making bubble juice like for nothing when we could have just driven to go get actual bubble juice. So that is an example of maybe, depending on how valuable your time is, maybe instead of trying to spend an hour trying to do something that you could easily spend a few bucks to save time, balance that out, seeing what your priority is in that moment. If you're like broke and you don't have extra money to spend on bubble juice, heck yeah, spend as much time as you need trying to perfect that formula. But we just really wanted to be cheap and like we didn't even think about it. We just mindlessly spent an hour, almost 2 hours. It was like an hour and a half just trying to save like $5. And it was hilarious. It was so funny. And we still have to go get bubbles. Like that's the moral of the story. We still had to go get bubbles. Okay, foundation is done. We used a little bit too much product, so that's good. See, oh my God, this is actually an example of me being cheap right now. There is a little tiny smidgen of foundation, and you best know I ain't about to let that little drop go to waste. Nuh-uh, back in the bottle for you, homie. Back in the bottle for you. Okay, now there's some really, really great outcomes when it comes to being cheap. Or there can be some really great consequences. Great consequences? Is that a thing? Are all consequences bad? I don't know. Are all consequences bad? What did you Google that? There are some great outcomes. There we go. Sometimes there's some really great outcomes whenever you're a cheap person or a frugal person. Sometimes there's some really great opportunities that happen. For example, when my boyfriend and I first moved out of our parents' house, we moved into our first apartment and we had almost no furniture. We had like a couch that his mom had given us. We had a coffee table. We didn't have a dining room table. We didn't have a TV stand. Our house looked pretty much empty except for like 2 pieces of furniture. It wasn't a house, it was an apartment. It felt like a little house to us, a little house. So we just had our TV on top of the coffee table. So we didn't have a TV stand. It was super low to the ground. It worked, but it definitely wasn't like an actual TV stand, you know? So it was the couch, the coffee table, and then the TV right on top of it. But at least we had a couch and at least we had something, at least we had a TV. So we wanted, you know, we wanted that dream of having like a fully furnished apartment. And so we would sometimes go to Walmart and we would window shop. Like we would, you know, window shopping is when you shop with your eyes, but you know your wallet has moss coming out of it, like you ain't got no money. So we were just kind of looking around Walmart, around their furniture, around their TV stands, their entertainment centers and all that. And there was this really nice, it was like a dark brown wood looking TV stand. Like it had these really nice like shutter, it was like a shutter door front. So this really nice TV stand was like $300 or I don't know, it was like 300 or 600 bucks. I might be over exaggerating. I could have swore it was like $600 or like $500 or something, but I may be over exaggerating, but I could have sworn. Later we made a trip to Goodwill because occasionally we would go to Goodwill just to see if they had any deals. Goodwill's a hit or miss. All thrift shops are hit or misses, you know. So we go to Goodwill. Eric, my boyfriend, he wants to go to the back and check out the furniture. I'm like, okay, like go ahead. Like we probably can't afford anything, but we go back there. We see the same TV stand at Walmart that we just saw. We see that same TV stand like in the back of Goodwill. He runs back there and he's like, babe, isn't this the same one that's at Walmart? And I'm like, yeah, like what the heck? He's like, oh man, that's crazy. Like I wonder how much they're selling it for. He looks at the tag and they're selling it as a buffet table. They thought it was a buffet table, whoever labeled it at Goodwill, and they were selling it for $25. I'm not even joking you. I think I have a picture of the tag somewhere. If I have a picture of the tag, I'm gonna put it like right over here. We freaked out. We're freaking out. The tag is still on it. So like, cause you know how at Goodwill, if you wanna buy the furniture, you just take off the buy tag, you know? The tag was still on it. So nobody had seen this $25 huge TV stand. Nobody had looked at it. So Eric was like, babe, go get somebody. Go ask to see if this is still available. So I really quickly grabbed the tag. So I had the tag in my hand, but I was standing right next to it because I don't want somebody to somehow come by and take it from me. I don't know. I was just really paranoid. As I'm standing there, I start to see, because I think we freaked out like really loudly. Like we must have been pretty loud. And all of a sudden I see like sharks. I swear to God, I felt like I was in a Shark Tank. People start to swarm around me and they were just staring at me and staring at the buffet stand. And they were coming closer and closer and closer. There was one dude in particular that literally was just staring at the buffet stand. I could tell he was inching closer to see if I was gonna like walk away. I stood right there. I stood my ground. I was like, I was like, if this is actually $25, this is coming to my house. It only took like 10 minutes to find somebody because it was really busy. He brings an employee back, an employee looks at it and he's like, yep, it's $25. And I was like, are you sure? He went to go ask the back. It was $25. We were so elated. That's a new word I learned recently. Elated. That means super happy. It was amazing. So we were honestly just so happy. We were so excited. Okay, it was a huge hassle bringing it back home because we were still broke, so we couldn't afford a U-Haul. And then we had to bribe Eric's cousin with pizza to help us get it up the stairs to our apartment. It took quite a while to get it back to the apartment, but once it did, it felt so good just to have furniture. I'm so glad we went to Goodwill that day. We wouldn't have had such an amazing piece of furniture at such an early stage of us being so damn broke. And we still have that TV stand today. Like it's literally in my living room, like right now. So sometimes it's good to be cheap and look for those bargains and look for those deals, because if we didn't go to Goodwill that day and if we weren't looking for cheap stuff, we would not have gotten a $300, $400 TV stand for $25. So that is an example of a good time. It was good to be cheap. Freckles done. It's good enough. This is probably the best example of the worst time to be a cheapskate. The worst time to be a cheapskate is when it comes to purchasing a vehicle. That is probably the absolutely most terrible time you could choose to cheapen out on something. And I have firsthand experience with this. My whole life, my family has been buying very cheap cars since I was 6 years old, right? This is as far back as I can remember. My dad and my mother love buying cheap cars. We grew up needing to be frugal. Every time a car would break down, they would just replace it with another cheap car. They would sell the old car, replace it with another cheap car. As a kid, looking from like my end of things, I just remember cars constantly being bought and sold. My dad was always on Craigslist. Mom, please don't get upset with me. If I'm remembering that incorrectly, please don't be upset with me. It was just what I was used to. Like, I just thought that was normal. I just thought everyone did that. So by the time I was ready to purchase a car, I had $800 saved up. From what my father has told me, I only need like $1,000 to buy a car because that's how much my parents were buying cars for. I love my dad. He's so amazing. I love my parents. So I was working at Six Flags, making minimum wage, which at the time was $7.25. I did not have that much money. So my dad, being so sweet and wonderful, spent like days searching through Craigslist trying to find a cheap car that would get me to work and back. Not a car to be driving around, going on road trips. It's a car to get you where you need to go. So he finds a old Pontiac Bonneville, 2000 Pontiac. I can't remember the year, but it was a Pontiac Bonneville. The person selling it said that the car ran fine. The only thing that had happened was that his daughter had hopped a curb. So we show up and we're like, okay, cool. Like, you know, how bad is it? The front passenger side of the car, it looked like someone had taken a rolling pin and just went where the tire was. That should have been a sign to me that a little bit more than hopping a curb had happened. But when my dad asked about it, he had said, oh, like she had hit a sign or something, making it seem like something else like non-consequential happened. It wasn't a big deal. Like she just hit a stop sign, or oh, she just accidentally backed into a railing. He said the only thing it needs is an alignment and you're good to go. And I look it up and alignments are only like $100. And I'm like, okay, well, how much do you want for the car? He said he would sell it to us for $400. At the time, 18-year-old little dummy Peachy, and I was like, whoa, that's $400, and like all I need to do to fix the car is just get an alignment. Oh, that's amazing. If you were to look straight down at the car, walk to the front and look straight down, you could see that the passenger side front tire, it looked like that. No, I'm sorry, it looked like this. I'm gonna use both my hands, hold on. So the tire's supposed to look like this. It looked like this. It definitely looked like someone had taken a bat and just kind of bopped it, and now it's like this now. So at the time, I didn't understand anything about cars. I still don't really understand that much about cars. I drive off, right? I take it to a shop and I'm like, hey, I need to get an alignment done. They do all the diagnostics and stuff. I come back in an hour and then they're like, hey, so the axle is completely bent out of shape to the point where an alignment is just like impossible. And I was like, how much is that gonna cost? But it was like $3,000. It was literally like, because it wasn't just this, it was like all these little things that need to be done. I don't exactly remember how much it was. It felt like $3,000. I was like, that's more money than I have. And he's like, well, you could maybe just get by with just changing the tire, because the way your tire is positioned, the front passenger tire I told you about, by the way, the tread is wearing down really fast because it's not properly lined. So it's like this. So the tread is wearing out a lot faster. So I kept having to replace the tire like 5 times. And being a stupid little dummy, I went to Discount Tires. They offered me a credit card. You can just do it on this credit card and you can pay in payments. So I did it like that for like almost a year of just constantly replacing the tires, which is money I still owe, by the way, because I never paid it off because I'm a little dummy. At the time, I just didn't stress about it because of this next part I'm about to tell you. Eyeliner is done. Sorry, I literally cannot do eyeliner like while I'm talking. It's possible. We bought the car, $400 car, right? What could go wrong? $400 car, a lot could go wrong. So there I am, replacing my tire every month. And one faithful day, my little brother was working at an ice cream shop and he needed a ride home from work. And I was like, sure. I was like, I'll go pick you up. The mall's closed. It's after closing time. It's dark. There's literally nobody around. There's no cars. I'm waiting in the parking lot. He gets out. He jumps in the car. And I go to start my car up again. It started making a really like funny, weird sound. We start driving out of the parking lot and we go around the corner. All of a sudden, my car just completely stops. stopped. I realized we had run out of gas. So another fun thing that was wrong with this car was that the gas gauge didn't show when you were empty. So you just kind of had to guesstimate. You had to kind of keep it full, just kind of guess when your car was about to lose gas. So I look, all of a sudden the needle went from a quarter tank to empty. It just went whoop, completely empty. And I was like, no. I was freaking out. We didn't have cell phones because I was broke. He had just gotten a job, so he was broke. Our parents didn't give us phones. We didn't have internet. Like we didn't have phones. Luckily, thank God, there was a mall security car that pulled up. They let us use their phone. We called our parents. They brought a can of gas. They put some gas in my tank. Everything, was good. We're like, okay, cool, awesome. So my brother and I are just driving home together. The road back home to where my parents' house lived, where we lived at the time, is very dark. It's very country. There's no street lights, so it's just very dark. My brother had the window rolled down. We were just talking and stuff. My brother's like looking out the window and he says, hey, I think your car's on fire. And I'm like, what? And I look at my rearview mirror and I see sparks, red hot sparks coming off of like the back of the car. And I'm like, oh my God. We pull over. I look and the passenger tire, the one that was all messed up, finally it just had enough. And now the tire was completely on fire. I pull over, I get out, jump out of the car. I'm freaking out. My brother's like, oh my God, like what do we do? Again, I call my parents because luckily our mom and our dad had driven off ahead of us. They come back and they're like, what the heck? My mom gets out of the car. She looks and she's like, oh my God, we need to call 911. We need to call 911 right now. My dad's looking at the tire and he's like, oh, it's not that bad. Just need some water. We just need to put it out. We just need some water. Because my dad's like not afraid of anything. And my brother's right there with him. They have like their face all up in the tire. My mom is like, get away from the car. The tire could explode. And my dad's just like, nah, it's fine. Ding, 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 ding. It's all right. Ain't nothing gonna happen. My dad doesn't have an accent, but he should. Sorry, I'm gonna do my lips really. This part's hard to do when I talk. So my mom is absolutely freaking out at my dad, completely freaking out. The fire department get there, they start freaking out. They're like, sir, you need to back away from the car. This car is a fire hazard. It's possible that this car could completely combust, like right here. So my mom, that just like freaking enrages my mom even more and just like, get your butt back here, get your butt. Because my mom and I were 20 feet. We're like 30 feet away from the car. We're really far from the car. So finally, my dad and my brother come over. The fire department, they just start, trying to hose down the car. It's still smoldering. It was really scary. When they finally put it out, the fire department came over to my dad and was like, okay, sir, so what towing company did you want to take this away? Like, we don't suggest that you drive this. Basically, like, what dump are you taking this to? Because this is no longer a drivable car. And my dad was like, what? No, it's fine. Wait, we could still fix it up. Like, it's fine. The fire department was like, no, sir, like, this car is no longer drivable. Like, it's a safety hazard. And my dad, being my dad, is like, well, can we at least drive it back home? And they're like, sir, no, you can't. You can't drive this car. There was like a little church parking lot, like half a mile away. Because if we lived on the side of the road, it was gonna get towed and ticketed. And my dad didn't want that. Dad convinced the fire department to let him slowly drive the car to the parking lot of the church. And they were watching him, so they weren't gonna let him drive it any further because they were like, they were like, nope. My car ended up staying there for like a week. So yeah, eventually we got the car back home. We ended up selling it for parts for like $200. Yeah, moral of that story is don't be cheap when it comes to your safety. If it's something that's gonna endanger you, because that car, honestly, if I would have been on the highway and I didn't notice that my car caught on fire, and if my brother wasn't riding with me, if he hadn't had his head out the window, it's quite possible that my tire could have exploded. I could have exploded. I would have been in a serious accident and maybe caused an accident for somebody else and hurt somebody else if I was on the highway, When it comes to your safety, it's better to invest a little bit extra money. Save up a little bit extra. Don't go buying cheap cars you don't know the issue of. Buy like a car for like $2,000, $3,000. Like a solid car that isn't gonna catch on fire in 6 months. Well, that's the moral of our story. I'm going to get changed and done. Alright, y'all, this is the finished look. That concludes our story. There's good times to be cheap and frugal and look for deals, and there's some bad times when it comes to being on a budget, having to search for a pair of shoes that are on sale, a pair of jeans that look really nice on you, and they're 50% off. Perfect time to be cheap. Perfect time to be looking for those deals. Not so good time to be cheap when it comes to your safety. A vehicle, for example. Those things are death machines. Just be safe out there. I am super super duper late for my stream. So thank you so much for hanging out with me while I get ready for my Twitch stream. So I'm gonna be doing that. Twitch.tv/ThePeachyKat if you'd like to come by. I also have a TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Follow me on anything you got. All the links will be down in the description. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I love you guys all so much, and don't forget to stay peachy. Goodbye, everybody.